Have you ever been in one of those seasons of your life, or it could even be a week, which is a short season, but it seems like everything that you read, the conversations you find yourself in, or the things that you hear or overhear, they all seem to have this similar theme. Have you ever been in one of those moments where you're like, oh my God, every time I turn around, that comes up, I'm walking to the grocery store, you hear this, you turn on the TV and there it is again. And you go to work and something's said and it's like everywhere I go, there's this subject or this word or this topic that just keeps coming up. And so you gotta start asking yourself, what is it that the God of the universe is trying to get through to me? Because I need to be aware that this is not a coincidence. This is a theme of the Spirit in trying to speak something into me. Well, over the last, it's been 3 or 4 weeks now, the one for me has been two words. And it's been the words triggers and the word projection. And I mean, it is like every time I pick up a devotion, every time I find myself in a conversation with someone, anytime I've started reading a book or an article, for some reason, the term triggers and the term projection continues to come up. So let me briefly describe these words so we can all kind of get on the same page. The word triggers, here's what that means. Triggers are an emotional reaction to something that we see or something that we smell or even something that we hear. Now, this trigger, this reaction is usually, not always, but usually is rooted in some former tragedy in our life or a latent fear that we might have. And so something is said or we see something or hear something that's like, it triggers this emotional reaction from us. Now, let's look at the word projection for a second. The word projection is this. It is a subconscious defense mechanism of the brain in which a person attributes or projects characteristics or things they find unacceptable in themselves onto another person. Like if you ever had that person, they're sitting there, and man, they're just scarfing down, cake and pie, and some person's name will come up and they'll go, yeah, they just need to be more disciplined. That's their problem. If they had more discipline, you're sitting there going, really? Discipline, right, okay. Or the person that's never finished something in their whole life, and somebody's name will come up and they go, well, that person just needs to try harder. That's how come that's not happening. You're like, okay, I'm not going to say anything, but it sounds like you're talking about yourself, but we're not going to bring that up today, because I want to have a good evening as a family. Well, what we discover is that triggers and projection are actually unresolved issues in our own life, not the life of the one that triggers us or we project onto. You say, okay, Jeff, that's all great, psychobabble, yeah, blah, blah, blah. What does this have to do with the teaching of Christ in Matthew 5? Well, I'm glad you asked. Great question. Let's look at it. Matthew chapter 5, verse 10, and it says this. Blessed or happy are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I kept reading that over and over and going, what does that really even mean? I mean, how can you be happy for being persecuted for trying to have righteousness in your life? And so I began to realize that the entire teaching of the Beatitudes has a kind of a single theme that is the umbrella over all of it. And that is being attuned to the Spirit of God and being who God created us to be. Like if you go back and start looking over them again, you're like, it really is. It really is about saying, I'm going to shut out the noise and I'm going to be attuned to the Spirit of God and what the Spirit of God is trying to teach me. And I'm going to be who God created me to be, not who everyone says I should be or expects me to be or who I'm trying to be to impress everyone else. That really is. Jesus said, listen, if you want the blessed life, if you want a happy life, that happiness is found when you're in tune with the Spirit and being who I created you to be. That's where you're going to find true happiness. So, as Christ brings these teachings to a close, he's letting us in on a truth about human nature. That's what he's saying. He's going to listen. I created all you peeps. I made every one of you. And so I'm going to let you in on it. As I close out this, he had a sermon, whatever you want to call it, Sermon on the Mount, Beatitudes, whatever. He's like, listen, I'm going to give you some insight to human nature. I'm just going to bring this to you so that you're not shocked, so you're not caught off guard, so that you're not upset, so that you're not trying to, whining or depressed or anything about that. I'm letting you know ahead of time right now something about human nature. In other words, he is foretelling what right attunement with the Spirit will elicit from others. He's like, I'm going to let you know right now, as you get in tune with the Spirit and start being true to who I created you to be, it is going to elicit this kind of behavior from people around you. For example, have you noticed how some people seem to attack innocent people? And you sit there and going, what did they ever do to you? Why are you, what's the deal? I mean, it's like, or better yet, how they talk about the nice person or the one that is at peace with themselves. It's like you sit there going, I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is that bothers you about that person being themselves or that person being at peace with their life. And why I'm trying to figure this out. And what happens a lot of times, you have someone who's at peace, you can have another person accuse them of being apathetic. They're just apathetic, or they're lazy. Or another one you get all the time, if you're really at peace and you're really with the Spirit and it's about love and forgiveness, you'll be accused of being too liberal. You're just too liberal. You think everything's about love, grace, and forgiveness. Like, well, yeah, I kind of do. When I read the teachings of Christ, that's kind of what I get out of it, love and forgiveness and kindness and gentleness. And, oh, yeah, now you're just being all super spiritual. It's like, oh, my God, while ago I'm being liberal, now I'm being too spiritual. Like, what is it you want? And what you find is really what they're attacking is the peace that they're lacking in their own life. That's what happens all around us. Once again, triggers and projection. I've come to realize that not all, but most external attacks come from another's internal struggle. For years, when someone would begin to attack my staff or attack certain friends or whatever, and it's a person that really loves God and really does try to be a good person, and it's like, this really isn't you. Why? And so rather than join in the circle, I usually will pull that person to the side and go, hey, listen, I was told that you said this to one of my staff members, or you said this to one of the people in the church, and before we get into all that, let's talk about you. How are things going in your life? How are things going in your marriage? How are things going in your job? How's your relationship with God? 9.9999999 times out of 10. It has nothing to do with that person or that situation. It was something that was going on inside of them. And we just look for a place to project it, and that person usually is someone who really is, like Ray talked about last week, a peacemaker. We usually hit the person of peace. They'll joke, you get mad at work and everything happens, you come home and kick the dog, and the dog's like, what the heck did I do? All I did was come to the door and wag and lick your hand, and you kick me? It's kind of like maybe these kind of phrases will help you get what I'm saying, is that this upsets me, so it should upset you too, right? I'm wrecked over this. Why aren't you wrecked over this? This bothers me. If you were right with God, it'd bother you too. And, I don't have any peace, so you shouldn't have any peace. I mean, well, what, do you not care? I mean, do you not see things? Or here's another one. This is my favorite one. Of course, they'll never say this out loud. I'm not willing to change. And I'm not really ready to address my stuff. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to focus on you and your stuff and what you should feel and what you should change. Let's just focus on that, because I don't want to focus on my stuff. That takes too much work. It's just easier to focus on yours. Now, no one would say that out loud, but here's what happens. Jesus, the Christ, is teaching here on being attacked for simply being attuned to who God created you to be. That's what it means being persecuted for right. He says, listen, you're going to be attacked for just being the person that I created you to be. That's what's going to happen. Put it this way, your being at peace will upset some to the point to where they can't be at peace until you are no longer at peace. That's sad, isn't it? And it's really kind of crazy when you think about it. It's like, why do we do that? You know, we say, if you would quit doing that, then I wouldn't be triggered. Quit triggering me. You know, if you would improve how you do stuff, you wouldn't trigger me. The whole time, it's them, right? It's them. It's them. And it's like, listen, no. It's like this. Come here, Ethan. All right, get up on the stage. All right, kind of stand back a little bit. No, stand back a little bit. All right, no, grab this. Now start shaking it real hard. All right, okay. What just came out of the bottle? Thank you. Thanks, man, you're good. What just came out of the bottle? Nope. You know what came out of the bottle? What was in it? You see, what happens is, when something in life shakes us, triggers us, what's in us comes out. That's what Christ is saying. Remember the definition of the word righteousness back several weeks ago when we began the series. The state of who we ought to be. Rightness, correctness in thinking, feeling, and acting. Usually the reason that the righteous are attacked is because the one over here is sitting here saying, I don't like this about me. And you're doing your work shakes me. I heard it put one way. This is an old school way of saying it. Your obedience makes other people's disobedience stand out. You're being at peace and true to yourself illuminates in this person them knowing that they're not being true to who they really are. So it's easier to project than it is to introspect. Which, you know, as you see, it's just this being at peace and being right and attuned with the Spirit and true to your true self is the opposite of projecting and being controlled by our triggers. So Christ is preparing us that being attuned to the Spirit and being who you ought to be, acting out of our true self and not acting out of our wounds or others' expectations, though it is amazing and brings such inner peace and an outer purpose to life, get this, he's saying, not everyone will celebrate it. Just letting you know. It's beautiful, but not everyone is going to celebrate it. As a matter of fact, some will do the opposite. And half the time, listen, you need to hear this, half the time, not even to be aware of why they are really doing it and not even aware that they're doing it. Listen, I mean, this is like people pay big money to be in therapy sessions to get to the point of what we're teaching right here and what we've learned through this whole series. I'm telling you how different our life can be if we can identify our triggers in the areas that we project. It would radically change our life. Now, right here is a great place to do another word study in order to fully embrace the beauty of what Jesus is saying here, okay? Because you got to realize, he said, persecuted for righteousness, theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now, it's very easy, just in our mind, just hit, rewind, play. It's, listen, I already got that. I know what that means. Kingdom of heaven means when you die, you go to heaven. And so if you're righteous, then you get to go to heaven one day on this other side. You get your wings. You get to go sit on clouds. You get to be a fat cherub, and you get to go fly around and do whatever you want to do. You get to be pearly gates. Hey, I get it. No, we miss it when we think that way. Let's look at the original language that it was written in. The word persecuted means to pursue in a hostile manner, to drive away, to make fun of, or trying to catch someone. There's a difference between trying to catch someone and trying to catch someone. The word kingdom, get this, it means power. That's what it means. That if you're walking in righteousness, if you're walking in who you ought to be in Christ, if you're walking in your true self, you will have power. And where? Well, Jeff, is heaven again. We already said, look, this word heaven was a word that was used that meant the earth, the sky, and the universe. So what Christ is saying is, if you get in tune with the Spirit and start being true to who I created you to be, recognize your triggers. Look at where you're projecting, because that is a sign of where you're at, not where they're at. If you'll work through this stuff, you will have a power in your life, both here, now, and forever. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. He's not saying you got to sit here and white knuckle it. And one day I get to go to the other side. I'm going to be miserable as hell, but I get to heaven. Life's going to be just a crapper, but one day I get to flush it all and go be with the Lord and everybody I love. What a miserable, depressing way to think. No wonder most people are depressed. If they think everything is then. This verse is saying power now and then. That's what it's saying. So now that we have a clear understanding on this truth, both spiritually and psychologically, all right, the way our spirit works and the way that our mind works, a modern translation of Matthew 5:10 could very well be worded like this: having done the deep work of introspection, walking in who you were created to be, and attuned to the Spirit will cause you to have a very peaceful and powerful presence, prepared to be attacked by those who are not self-aware and have yet to discover this for themselves. Because I'll tell you what you will find most beautiful about the people that are really walking these verses. They don't attack back. They remember what it was like before they became aware, before they became attuned. So I'm going to read it again. Having done the deep work of introspection, walking in who you were created to be, and attuned to the Spirit will cause you to have a very peaceful and powerful presence. How often have you been in the presence of someone and they walk away and you go, there's just something different about them? You know what I'm saying? There's this energy. There's this, I can't figure out what it is. And then when you hear their story and what they've been through, you're like, oh my, how could? They did the work. They did the work. They went from being the victim to being the victor. They went from being triggered by their emotions to being in control of their emotions. They went from having their thoughts control them to the verse where it says, take every thought captive and make it obedient to Christ, which Christ is love. Christ is truth. The truth of Christ's teaching here is revealed in another passage that just is so beautiful. And I can honestly say, it describes Ray and Debbie, and they've been the two most spiritual, influential people in my life the last 2 years. And this verse describes them, and I want to get at a place in my spiritual life to where someone can say this verse about me. But it's 1 Peter 3:15. But in your hearts, revere Christ as Lord. Always be prepared to give an answer to everyone who asks you to give the reason for the hope that you have, but do it with gentleness and respect. I'm telling you, I want to be there. They're there. I'm not there. But this verse is the addendum, the footnote to the Beatitudes. And you say, listen, my life's not perfect. I've been through a lot of crap too, but I'm not going to wear it on my sleeve. You know, I've had some pretty crappy things happen, but I'm not going to give out blame and shame and guilt cards to everybody around me. It's my life, it's my journey, and it's me being in tune with the Spirit of God and me being at peace with that and me just being me. And when you attack, if I attack back, that means I still got triggers to deal with, right? Otherwise, I'm going to realize that you're missing out. And so I'm going to respond with what? With this gentleness and respect. Because I want you to have the hope that I live with every day. I'll close with this. May we all learn today that the peace, the purpose, the love, the passion, and the joy that we all seek, will be discovered and experienced as we tend the garden of our own heart. Let's pray. God, thank you so much for your word. Jesus, thank you so much for walking us through these Beatitudes, and that you're not asking us to walk anyone else's journey. You're not asking us to live up to anyone else's expectations. You're simply calling us to righteousness. And God, you made it so clear. That means being attuned to your Spirit, being who you created us to be, and that all of our words and actions flow from a place of love and gentleness and respect towards others, because we will have experienced it and given it to ourselves first. In Christ's name, amen.